Morning. Let's praise the Lord again. We as an overcoming people, we have every right to praise the Lord. He has brought us a mighty, mighty long way. Well, good morning, everybody. And I just want to share a quick historical story with you about in this Black History moment. In the early 1900s, a class of African-American entrepreneurs created a vibrant, vital, self-contained economy that would become the talk of the nation. Known as Black Wall Street, it was really the Greenwood Avenue Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It had nightclubs, hotels, cafes, newspapers, clothiers, movie theaters, doctors, lawyers, grocery stores, beauty salons, shoe shine shops, an airport, a bus system, a hospital, and a telephone system. It was so developed and refined that it compared favorably to the legendary thoroughfares like Beale Street or State Street in Chicago. However, in the spring of 1921, underlying social and economic tension in Tulsa sparked the worst race riot in American history. As many as 300 people lost their lives. Property damage ran into the millions. The Greenwood District was a 35 square block area that compiled the entire African American community, and it lay in ruins. Now I'm going to move forward and talk about an equally rich such community in our modern days that we in this historic church sit in the heart of. The community is Vine City and English Avenue. The street is Martin Luther King, previously known as Hunter Street. The community Vine City may be the last culturally important assembly of land in the city controlled by African Americans in Atlanta, and it's within 1.5 miles of this church. The community, though it won't be burned down by some envious white citizens, is under attack by white economic interests. Those interests will destroy our rich history as Black people in Atlanta under the premise of revitalization. Let me give you some examples of this history. This area contains the residence of the civil rights legends such as Martin Luther King Jr. and his family. They lived right over here on Sunset Street. Julian Bond lived over here on Sunset Street. It contained the church of Ralph David Abernathy on the corner of Brawley and Hunter Street. It contained the popular Herndon Homes, which is right up here, which was the residence of Alonzo Herndon, and who was the former CEO of the Atlanta Life Insurance Company, which just happens to be the #2 Black insurance company in America. It contained the first branch of the Citizens and Trust Bank, which is our largest Black bank. And CTB financed many of the homes and businesses in this area, including us. Vine City contains 2 of the other buildings that were not burned down during Sherman's March to the Sea. And the only 2 buildings not burned down are right up here on the crest at Morris Brown. They're up there in the Morris Brown campus. Other significant business and community persons include Mr. Heman Perry, who built the first planned Black community in Atlanta, Washington Park. He also gave the land on which Booker T. Washington High School resides. Speaking of Booker T. Washington High School, of course you know it's the first Black high school in Georgia. Its music director, Graham Jackson, was one of the favorite musicians of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. In fact, his picture was on the cover of Life magazine, weeping at Roosevelt's funeral. Washington Park was the home of Mr. Tiger Flowers, who was the first Black world middleweight champion in 1926. It was the home for entrepreneurs Clifton Yates and Ormer Milton of the famous Yates and Milton drug chain. And was even, interestingly enough, it was the home of the president of Miles College, who lived here on the weekend and went to Miles during the week. I thought that was interesting. Martin Luther King, then called Hunter Street, contained famous food establishments such as Pascal's, the Busy Bee, which is still here, Frazier's Cafe, which is now the Blue Seas restaurant, and Henderson Travel, which was the first black travel agency to promote black African tours. Further important persons in black Atlanta history include Grace Towns Hamilton, who was the first black female to hold office as a state representative in the Deep South. Speaking of politics, the area includes a child of this church, Ella Mae Brayboy. Ella Mae is considered the godmother of voter registration. A graduate of Booker T. Washington High, she helped get Booker T. Washington High on the National Registry of Historic Places. This community also contains Central United Methodist Church. And of course you know that Central was the home church for more than 17 years of Dr. Joseph Eccles Lowry, Presidential Medal of Honor winner. Other significant business persons who underwrote civil rights movement included Jesse Blayton, who was the first black to own and operate a radio station, WERD, in the United States, and the first black CPA in Georgia. Then there was William Calloway, who built Westview Plaza on MLK, which was a first for the black business community. And then there was A.T. Walton, attorney, who brought many lawsuits that caused the desegregation of Atlanta and was the founder of the Atlanta Negro Voters League and the Gate City Bar Association. Also know there is an educator, Dr. Pearlie Dove, who still lives in Washington Park and who has received many honors and citations for her work in the community and education as a professor at Clark Atlanta University. Speaking of Clark Atlanta University, did you know that it was the largest collective of black higher education institutes in the world? What is known about this community? What is professed about this community is its negativity, what it doesn't have. But what isn't known about this community is what it does have, its history and its assets. When you look at the economics of this community, you see something totally different than the commonplace conversations held about it today. You see many important economic engines, not only to negate the negative perceptions, but they undergird this city. For example, I'll bet you didn't know that the entire CAU education complex employs approximately 7,000 people. Most of them black. Most of the jobs middle class. And if you come on down Fair Street, you come across H.J. Russell Company. Employs 2,000 people in Atlanta, 90% of whom are black. I would venture to guess that between these two entities, they employ more black people than any corporate body outside of the local governments in this city. But you never hear that mentioned. Also, you never hear mentioned that it's a community that contains a large number of black-owned and operated businesses that employ many persons, even if it's people like you and me. Finally, all of these persons are businesses were and still are very active in the black community and give freely of themselves for the good of the community through civic and philanthropic efforts, offering their skills, knowledge, and everything that is sorely needed today. The point of my Black Historic Moment is to remind us of the legacy that we have and can recreate. We must not allow the legacy to be bulldozed under the name of progress, but have whatever development designed by us in recognition of our history and important economic contributions. Instead of a view of community negativity, which includes, unfortunately, their view of Central, we need to promote the reality of a five-star community. One that may have needs, but has a history of overcoming, and a strong base upon which we can build for tomorrow. We need to revitalize this community in our image, not to have it simply be the latest in award-winning urban community redesign. This is a project that Central can and should play a major role in. I'm moving to close by quoting Dr. Dove, who speaks for me and for many when she says, "I make decisions based upon decency rather than expediency. I strive for excellence rather than mediocrity," 5-star. "I believe actions should mirror words, and I prefer substance to superficiality." I can believe these words were in the hearts of all of the people in the past and the communities who represent, and now they can be a part of how our communities are redeveloped in the future. The new battle is and continues to be about economic independence. Since we didn't get our 40 acres and a mule, let us strive to make our communities retain their economic base through growth and development of Black and small businesses through which we can grow and preserve our rich legacy. At this point, I just want to bring up something that I've noticed on the news here lately. You've seen this movie, promotions for Monument Men. Everybody's kind of seen that. There's a quote, I don't know if it comes out very often, but I think that it's very appropriate for this. The quote out of Monument Men says, "Our history is not to be destroyed, but to be held up and admired." That's what we have in community. Our history is not to be destroyed, but to be held up and admired. Thank you all very much. And join me in asking Richard Morton for his assistance in my data collection. Thank you very much.